Assalamu alaikum, ladies. Alhamdulillah, I finally did it. I actually wrote a book. It's dedicated to all the single Muslim mothers out there, hence the name, How to Be a Single Muslim Mum. Inshallah, it's available as an ebook, paperback, and it will be available as an audio. Alhamdulillah. Barakallahu feekum, sisters, for the support. Check out the link in the description to get yours. The Niqabi Diaries, Season 4. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode, season 4 of the Niqabi Diaries. Alhamdulillah, we have with us a sister here to share her niqab journey with us. Sister, could you please introduce yourself for the listeners and tell us a little bit about what you do, inshallah?
Yes, inshallah. First of all, wa alaikum assalam again. And so my name is Hiba and I live in Hyderabad, India. I just graduated from my degree in nutrition and public health, and I'm also studying Islamic studies full-time at Al Madinah International University, Malaysia, alhamdulillah. And I'm a life coach. That's what I do.
MashaAllah, Allah Mubarak. So could you give us some information about your Islamic background and how you came to be wearing the niqab?
Yeah. So I grew up in a conservative family, I can say, and alhamdulillah, like all of my family is very much attached to Islam, and there's been parts of Islam that have been taught to me throughout my childhood, but I would say there is a little bit of cultural hint to the Islam taught. What I mean by that is, most of it comes from the culture, like the Muslim culture here in Hyderabad. So the Islam I learned was mostly from the culture. So you can see like people wearing niqab as part of the culture, but they don't really know the significance of it, or they don't really know, what that means, or like where else they should be wearing niqab outside of the streets. So growing up, I learned a lot of Islam through culture, but eventually, like through high school, I started going to an institute here called Al Huda, and there I learned a lot about Islam. And then later on I continued with my, Islamic studies journey, and like Alhamdulillah, I learned a lot. So starting to wear a niqab was mostly a cultural thing for me, but then it was like a more awakening thing after I gained a little bit of knowledge.
Okay, mashallah. So how did it, can you just walk us through your transition of, wearing it from a cultural perspective? And how old was you when you started wearing it culturally? How old were you? And when it's a transition, and, you mentioned that you started gaining knowledge and everything. Did it happen when you started your Islamic studies that you're doing now, or was it even before that?
So what it means to wear niqab culturally is like you can see people wearing niqab, but then when they want to eat something, they'll stand like right in front of the store. I don't know what it's called in English, but like a bundy, like a place where like you have some fast food basically, and they would just eat niqab. They would just they would eat like remove their niqab and start eating, not recognizing like there's a man standing right there, or like maybe they'll have like a picture of themselves on their, maybe a WhatsApp DP or something, like on their display profile picture, not realizing that, oh, you need to observe niqab here as well. So yeah, especially in events, and people don't really care about, in weddings and all, like they don't care about hijab or niqab because it's just a part of culture that they grew up with. So they wear niqab and hijab outside, and abaya as well. But in these situations, it doesn't kick in because culturally you're not accustomed to doing that. So for me, I started wearing niqab culturally, I would say, in 8th grade. So I went to an Islamic school, so that helped a lot. Yeah. So I started wearing in 8th grade. I'm not really sure at what point it was a more purposeful niqab, but I'm not sure at what point I switched from like a cultural niqab to a more, informed niqab.
Okay, mashallah. So you was in 8th grade, mashallah, when you started wearing it.
Yeah.
And before that, I'm assuming that he was wearing the hijab. So was that
Oh yeah.
something also cultural, or did he have an understanding of, an understanding somewhat of the hijab and the purpose of it?
So hijab, I think I wore pretty much since I was 10. I'm not really sure since when, but like since forever, like I since I can remember. Because that's something that everybody does. Again, it's like part of the culture. So maybe 12, maybe I'm assuming, and I started wearing. No, no, I think hijab is way back. I started wearing abaya at 12, so hijab must be like even before that. Yeah.
Subhanallah. Okay. Okay, mashallah. So would you say, like, in your culture, in your community, I know very little about Hyderabad, India, and the main reason why I know a tiny little bit about it, and I wouldn't say I really know about it, but the imam that I used to from my community that I was in previously in Newcastle, he's actually from Hyderabad, India. So
Oh.
I have a generally a good, like, a very positive kind of image of Muslims there, because he's from there, and so that's a little that I know about them, alhamdulillah. But would you say then, because you mentioned that the niqab is something that's worn culturally, would you say there's a difference between how the hijab is perceived compared to the niqab in the culture? Like, is there a difference? Do people see them differently? How what's the understanding of the Muslims there between the two ways of covering?
hmm So among the Muslims, definitely there is like a more respectful attitude towards the women who wear a niqab. I would say about like 90% of the women here wear niqab because it's part of the culture. But like I live in a Muslim neighborhood, so it doesn't really, it's not something that I stand out wearing a niqab. But if you go into like communities where there are like little Muslims there, maybe a lot more Hindus there, then probably you would be looked at differently. And even now, actually, when I walk on the road, I it's just like something that like subconsciously I'm more aware of myself, not because of the fact that I'm wearing a niqab, but like in general because I'm wearing a hijab. So I don't think there is like increased hostility towards niqabis, but like as given the recent climate of Islamophobia here in India, there is like a more self conscious approach or like self conscious behavior in public. Yeah, like for myself, when I go out, I'm more self conscious and like looking around me like what's happening. So I won't say it's something to do with niqab, but it's just something in general to do with hijab or like just being a Muslim in this society here.
Okay, subhanallah. I think it will be interesting to discuss a little bit the Islamophobia that's been happening in India of late, and your perspectives as a Muslim that's been born and raised in that community. Um, so, like, have you personally faced any kind of abuse or hostility because of your Islam?
So, Alhamdulillah, I've been very lucky to have grown up in a Muslim environment. Like, I lived in a Muslim neighborhood right from when I was born. I went to a Muslim school for the most part, and actually, I went to like a Muslim college for university as well. But there have been some instances when um, it wasn't like very hostile, but like in for exams here, we have to go to separate colleges to write an exam. So one time, I think in one of my semesters, my final exam was in a Hindu college. So they actually didn't actually allow us to wear our niqab inside, and they actually even asked us to remove our abayas. So yeah, sometimes there are situations like that, but those are very rare, I would say. But I think they're increasing now.
Subhanallah, subhanallah. So, how would you say that affects the Muslim community in general? I mean, the fact that you have to sit your exams in in the Hindu colleges and things like that. Is there any kind of changes that are being made to kind of accommodate the differences now, and to help the Muslims kind of go forward in their endeavors so that they don't have to rely on the Hindu institutions?
So that's an interesting question because the answer is quite the opposite. unfortunately. So here we have like a famous university. It's called Osmania University, which was founded by the last Nizam of Hyderabad. I'm not really know. I don't really know if you are aware of the Nizams. Have you ever heard about them?
No, I haven't actually. Could you just give us a brief, explanation of what is it?
Yeah. So before Hyderabad joined India, like India gained its independence in 1947, and Hyderabad was annexed by India in 1948. Not to get too political, but like, yeah, we were annexed and in 1948, so like a year later, and the government then was the Nizams of the Hyderabad. They're like a dynasty, and the ruler is called the Nizam. So his name was Mir Uthman Ali Khan, and he was the one who founded this university, Osmania University, and it's like a very prestigious university, or at least it was until recent times. There's been a lot of I would say they're getting pretty notorious now. Not so not as good as it was in the olden days. And now the university is Muslim just in name, but the management and everything is run by the Hindus now, unfortunately. So we do have a few Muslim
Oh,
colleges. All of them are affiliated to Usman University, which has like a Hindu management. I wouldn't say like we have like good alternatives, but yeah, everything that we had are now like is now just slipping out of our hands like right now. That's what's happening. Yeah. Even other universities all across India, there's one known as Aligarh Muslim University. There's Jamia Millia, and all of the others like those were like Muslim universities in before independence, and now there's a lot of changes that's been happening. Yeah.
subhanallah. Okay, subhanallah. Right. So, yeah, I don't even know what to ask next now. SubhanAllah. So the things like sound like they're becoming a little bit more difficult than in general. Um, so how would you say that's kind of influenced your educational journey? Because you did mention in in your introduction that you're studying with an online university at the moment. So is that one of the reasons why you've gone down that route?
So for Islamic studies, we do have like independent madrasas that run here, but I wasn't actually satisfied with the quality of education here, so I wanted to study from a different university. So yeah, that's why I chose that. We do have like a few Islamic courses in Usmania University as well and other colleges, but I wouldn't consider them like incredibly or like I wouldn't consider them like my source of knowledge because given the management, I don't think that would be a wise choice to make.
Okay, inshallah. So can you tell us a little bit about your work that you're doing? You mentioned that you're actually into life coaching at the moment. So what got you started with the life coaching, and exactly what kind of life coaching do you do? Because it's quite a broad topic, and a lot
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
sisters are involved in life coaching these days. So if you can go into details about that, inshallah.
So for me, I started like I didn't know this was called life coaching back then, but like for me, like it was quite a journey to figure out what I wanted to do, like the career that I want to pick, or like what kind of work I want to do, and what should I study, and so on. So it was quite a journey. So whatever I learned, I just compiled everything into a presentation, and I started sharing that with my cousins, my younger cousins who were getting into college and university and so on. So that it started with that, and then slowly I discovered online, like I joined a few communities and I learned about life coaching, and I was like, oh, this is exactly what I've been doing. And I started learning more about it, and I joined like a life coaching certification. It's called Adwam certification by Discover You. They're like a Muslim um, self-help or like a Muslim development kind of organization. So I finished the certification with them this year, alhamdulillah. So I've been doing this life coaching, like not knowing it is life coaching, since 2021, and officially launched my life coaching last year. So I do specifically Islamic career and legacy coaching. So that's my, I would say, the main thing that I do. I do a little bit of habit coaching sometimes. I recently started doing like HIF coaching for people who are interested in learning doing HIF, because, like from my experience and what I learned through my journey. And inshallah, I'm looking forward to launching my health coaching really soon, because I just graduated from my nutrition degree, and I hope I can help people, fix their diet and all the diseases that come from that. Like, I firmly believe that majority of the diseases that occur are because of our food. So yeah, a lot of different topics in one answer, but yeah.
Allahumma barik, sister, mashallah. And I really, on your point about the food issue as well, I'm really interested in that subject myself, because I'm also a hijama therapist, and so nutrition is something that's
Oh,
very interesting topic for me.
that's
Yes,
interesting to
and
hear, because I'm also a hijama therapist.
wow, mashallah, Allahumma barik. Well, that's fantastic. So obviously, well, you know that the two things, they really go together, because I think that, whenever I'm advising clients, I always tell them, that, they can have hijama and it's going to help with many things, but if they don't adopt, try to adapt their diet and change the way that they, live, because it's a holistic way of living, isn't it? So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
really important to know the right foods. And mashallah, because obviously you've been with an Indian as well. I think you have that added benefit. I'm assuming that because you have the Ayurvedic kind of culture with the food and stuff like that, and learning about the body types and things like that. That's something that I'm still learning about now, and I find that there's a lot of benefit in those things. So could you talk a little bit about that as well, actually, because I think that'll be very, very beneficial for the listeners to hear about these things. Because recently I spoke with another sister who is she has a prophetic medicine, like
Hmm.
health business. Especially, she teaches about prophetic health and medicine and stuff like that. And she's also, I think, a hijama therapist as well. So, she's tried to educating the Muslims, especially about having that holistic way of living and improving their health. So it'll be really nice to hear, some of your own personal comments, like as somebody living in India, what would you say are the kind of main issues facing other sisters, for example, in their dietary needs, and their health in general.
That's quite a loaded question, I would say, but so with hijama, I obviously, I learned it and I practiced it for a while until I got a little busier, and then I stopped temporarily, I would say. But yes, I'm not too much into Ayurveda, but I did study herbal medicine for a bit, and I do know quite a few things about it, and I did study like some Indian herbs as well. But um, I would say like you have to go like different route to study Ayurveda, and Unani medicine. Unani medicine is like Greek medicine. So I didn't actually go much into that, but my focus mainly is through food, because that's what I studied like in college, nutrition. And in my approach, it's really important. Like, first disclaimer, I would like to say before I even answer this question is that a lot of things that we are taught in college in regards to nutrition are a little outdated, because we are taught to, I know this is going to be controversial, but we are taught like calorie counting and all of these things, but I don't really think these things work. They do work, but like they don't have like a big impact, a much bigger difference. Um, just when we fix our diet, when we fix the processed food in our diet and the sugar, that's what would make the bigger difference, in my opinion, in our overall health. Having a holistic lifestyle is very, very important. Managing our sleep, managing our stress, managing our food, managing our physical exercise, and also also incorporating hijama as well, because that's something from the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But I would say the majority of the and the disease conditions that occur today are because of our food and the processing that it goes through. Now, I've been doing a lot of research on this topic in specific because that's something that caught my eye. And as I delve more into it, I realize how bad it is. you know it's really like sugar is no stranger to being labeled as a bad food, but it really is more dangerous than we think. And if I go into it, I think it would be like another rabbit hole. So I am not sure if I answered your question, but yeah.
Yes, subhanallah. Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, and I think I agree to you with you to some extent because what I find interesting even about the topic of sugar personally, and I've seen like some vlogs, for example, showing like for example food carts in India, okay, like food vlogging videos. And I've seen that one of the things there's actually a YouTuber that I watch some of his content, and he's Indian. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's called FitTuber, but he talks
Mhm.
about some of the ways to actually heal your liver, for example. And he recommended the sugar cane and sugar cane with ginger, I think, a drink that is made like in India, quite common. Some of the
Mhm.
food carts that they have there, like the street foods, it's like a common thing that people can
Mhm.
get. So freshly squeezed sugar cane with ginger and lemon or lime or something like that. And I know in
Mhm.
Morocco
Yeah.
they also have the same drink that that is made freshly squeezed in the streets. So he said that's one of the beneficial foods. So, so sugar is very interesting subject for me, and the fact that you talked about the process, like when food's being processed, and it's like kind of changes the form of it. So that's why I'm very intrigued about the whole idea of sugar, because then with sugar you have what do we call it? You have molasses that comes from sugar as well, that's made, and that has a lot of, as far as I know, a lot of health benefits. And also the jaggery is also made
Mhm.
from sugar as well. So, these, as far as I understand, are like natural sugars and have a lot of, nutritional benefits. So I don't know, like if you could shed some light on that and like, maybe give me some kind of guidance towards it, because I personally see those as beneficial things. But I know that the sugar that is usually used in foods these days is the white refined sugar and things like that. So is there a difference, and what makes them different, if that makes sense?
Okay, so with sugar, there's like a lot of different sources for sugar. Again, like you mentioned, like molasses and honey and different syrups, maple syrup, agave syrup, and all of that. But for me, I actually didn't do like a comparative study and all of that. But what I did study is, what I did research into or like look into is the metabolical effects of sugar. And as far as metabolism is concerned, any sugar that has like fructose in it is dangerous for our body. And yes, there might be benefits to like consuming a little amount of it, but like over time, that is really dangerous for our body. And the thing with fructose, fructose is what is present in our table sugar. What we eat, table sugar is like 50% glucose and 50% fructose. So the glucose part of it is really essential for our body. And like the glucose is like, if we don't consume it, our body makes it. That's how important it is. But for the fructose, it doesn't really have any function in our body. And when we consume it, the only cell that recognizes fructose is our liver, and it metabolizes it, to cause a lot of side effects. And it results in, a number of diseases actually, which together are called as metabolic syndrome, because all of them are caused because of some disturbance in our metabolism. Now, metabolism is basically when you eat food and that food is broken down so that your body is able to use. So that process of, consuming the food to how it is useful to our body, converting to it to something that's useful for our body is metabolism. So yeah, so consuming fructose unfortunately causes a lot of disturbances in our metabolic pathway, like in our body. And that's what causes a lot of diseases. Metabolic syndrome includes, things like diabetes, increased cholesterol levels, hypertension, and, fatty liver disease, actually non alcoholic fatty liver disease. So it's not caused because of alcohol, which is, this fatty liver disease actually, used to be found only in alcoholics before, but now it's even found in children who don't drink alcohol, in the Western communities. So it's really interesting to look into this and to look into the effects of fructose. And I actually have like a whole presentation made on this, but it would be like a little too deep to dive into it now. Yeah.
Okay, mashallah. So yeah, it's really I'm sure it's a really big and interesting topic. So just out of curiosity, like what made you choose nutrition as a subject to go into? Was you already a hijama therapist when you decided that you wanted to study nutrition, or is it something that came after?
So for me, like, typical Desi families, everybody wants, their girls to become doctors, and I heard that growing up, but I didn't actually want to study medicine because I don't actually agree with the methodology of it. The drugs and all of that, and I actually did. Yeah, I have like quite a few doctors in my family, in my extended family, so that's something that I didn't like from the right from the beginning. And I think when I was in 10th grade, one of my aunts, studied naturopathy. And that's something that I wanted to do. But here in India, I didn't find many opportunities to do that. And yeah, so I didn't actually get into naturopathy, but I thought like the next best thing to study after that would be nutrition because that's like, I like to say, like, your food is your medicine. So I got into that. I actually have like a small, tiny little YouTube channel that I haven't been really active on recently. It's called Your Food, Your Medicine. So that's something, I thought like nutrition is something that's really important in this field. When you want to control your health or like improve your health, work on yourself, then improve your diet. So I did study nutrition. And after that, I wanted to study naturopathy and I still want to. I'm currently waiting for a few documents to apply for like a naturopathy diploma. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, okay, mashallah, mashallah. That's interesting to hear, and I like that you've gone down that route because I definitely agree with you when it comes to the the whole doctor and yeah, the medicine in general, like the mainstream medicine. And I think
Mm.
one of the downsides of it is that they don't seem to really study nutrition. And
Yeah.
that's, I mean, at least from my perspective, growing up in the UK, that seems to be very clear because, when you have any kind of medical condition and you go to the doctor, they never really advise you what you should be eating or not eating for that, to help with that particular condition. Because even the best foods, even if you're eating all natural foods and stuff like that, and you're, having home cooked meals, for example, and staying away from sugars and stuff like that, there's sometimes you might have something wrong with you. So there should be like foods, like you said, as medicine, that you should be taking more of a particular food and maybe less of another type of food. And that's one of the things I find quite interesting about the Ayurvedic medicine is that it talks about times of the day that you should maybe avoid eating certain things, um, you know, compared to others. I found personally that it's really helped me a lot. And I haven't really gone too much in depth with it, but just like having a little bit of knowledge about it has helped me kind of avoid ill feeling in my stomach and bad digestion and things like that. Because if I don't eat certain foods in the evening, it helps me digest foods better, and instead of like just eating any food at any time of the day. So I
Mm.
really, really, obviously, it's a big topic and very interesting for me actually. So alhamdulillah, it's nice to hear
Yeah.
that another sister is interested in these kind of
With the
things and
allopathic
going
medicine,
forward.
what I find really annoying about it is that they actually only work on, eliminating the symptoms, not really looking into what is causing these and treating them. It's like very short term kind of solution to the long term problems. And I think that's very harmful for our body in the long run. So with the natural medicine, yeah, you want to you want to get rid of the symptoms and everything with that, but it is not a wise thing to just address the symptoms without looking into the root cause of why this is happening. So I think that would be the major difference between the two approaches, the allopathic and naturopathic approach to medicine.
Yeah, definitely, I agree with you. And it's just like you mentioned, they're mostly treating the symptoms so that you just keep being sick, basically. So you don't really get cured, because that's one of the things, like people who, take those, pharmaceuticals, usually they stay on them. It's like a lifelong something. You start taking them, and then maybe you'll need another, develop another condition, and need to take another type of medicine, and till you end up just having like a basket full of medicines that you have to be taking like throughout the day, subhanallah. So it's
Yeah,
it's like being put on a hamster wheel. Yeah, it
yeah.
doesn't, like you
Everything
said,
that
it
you
doesn't
say
treat the
again
actual
just
causes.
reminds me of sugar again, because it's just like so many of these diseases have to do with the sugar and its effects. And like diabetes, hypertension, you don't have to go get, consume those drugs every day to be, healthy, or like being able to function. But like we are not addressing the root cause of it, which is primarily the sugar in our food, and which is causing a bunch of different
Mhm.
diseases that resulting in these symptoms. So again, like everything that we talk about health, it just goes back. Like I just get reminded of sugar because that's something that I've been studying. And also like we don't get, we are not taught about sugar and all of its effects in our, when we study nutrition at university, at college, because I feel a lot of it is filtered down to suit the food industries.
Well, probably because it's money making, isn't it? SubhanAllah. So, like literally, once you talk about this subject, you never stop. To be honest, I did watch a documentary about sugar actually, and it was really interesting and enlightening actually. About, like you're saying, the many detrimental effects it has to the human body, and it basically was a documentary of this guy, and he decided to like just mostly consume fast foods and stuff like that for, I think it was, I don't know, a month or so. But the
Mhm.
doctors was basically kind of analyzing his different, like, different changes that was going on in his body and stuff like that. And it was like literally within a very short space of time, his health like really deteriorated. And he could feel and he was somebody who was very fit and healthy before, and it just affected everything that he was doing, his way of thinking, his obviously his physical form, his ability to be able to like do things, energy levels, all that kind of stuff. So it's really interesting. SubhanAllah. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so mashallah, it's nice to hear that you have obviously your nutrition, and inshallah you'll be integrating that with your, as part of your life coaching. So you'll be more, sounds like you're going to be like doing more like a holistic type of life coaching. And it's nice
Yeah.
to hear that you're kind of implementing the things that you learned and just basically using that to teach others. So, and I think that in itself is a holistic way of learning and teaching, because when you learn something, you should use it, isn't it? Because if you don't use it, you lose it, as they say. So it's good to that's one of the ways to help to really cement your knowledge and to even increase it, because when you start teaching other people, you get those questions sometimes that maybe you don't know the answers to, and that helps help you to like do more research and find out, dig a little deeper into that subject matter, so you can get more knowledge and understanding of it, and maybe even get new teachers and stuff like that. So it's nice to have that way of learning, and it's a good reminder for me actually, because I think speaking to you, I'm just even thinking myself that like I need to be doing a lot more when it comes to the kind of implementation. It's like you can learn something and implement it yourself, but I think the best way is to really be teaching others as well as just using it for yourself, because that just makes things go a lot further, and like to help to raise awareness in the communities, to help spread that knowledge, inshallah.
Or about sugar and its effects, I would say like a very good source to turn back to is, the research, or like not research, you can find YouTube videos by Dr. Robert Lustig. He is like a leading American endocrinologist who did a lot of research on sugar and its effects, and how he treated, obese children who had, obesity in his clinic with, just by just eliminating sugar and processed food and all of that. He has like a really good book called Metabolical. So I think that would be like a good starting point for people who are like interested to learn more about, the real nutrition, if you will, like learning about sugar and how you can have like unprocessed food and all of that. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask if you've had any experiences with traveling with the niqab, and if so, how was it?
So with traveling, I feel like I haven't traveled for a long time, and I was quite young when I traveled. Actually, I don't think I actually wore niqab when I was traveling, so I don't think that would help.
Okay, mashallah. Then what about the issue of niqab being a barrier? You know, with all that's been happening in India recently, and you know, you did mention that, alhamdulillah, you haven't, you know, faced any kind of abuse or anything like that, so to speak. But do you consider that the niqab is a barrier? And if so, in which sense?
I don't I don't think like because like me personally, I haven't been interested in a lot of things, like studying here like a local university, or like applying to some kind of job here. So I don't really think I can answer it for myself, but I would say if you go into like companies and interview and so on, I think there would be an element of a factor of maybe you would get in or not would depend on the fact that you wear a niqab. I think so, but me personally, I haven't really been interested in that, so I haven't really approached that or applied for that or tried it. But what for me, like most of what I do is online. So I do like reach out to the local community here through schools and all of that, but they are Muslims, so the niqab doesn't really play much into it. But with online, I would say like with anything that I post, I actually think twice before doing that, because um not because like because of some backlash, but like just to make sure that I am within the boundaries that I set for myself. And with the online community, I think they are becoming a lot more welcoming of niqabis recently. I haven't actually done like a video with like a niqab on or something so far, but I think when I do that, maybe inshallah in the future, I don't look at it like a barrier or something that is stopping me from doing anything. When I do some like during my coaching calls and all, like when I do wear niqab on camera, I don't feel like there it is like a barrier of people misunderstanding me or something. I actually am really happy that I came across a lot of different niqabis online, and that gave me the confidence to continue. Like one particular, like for me, like I would be really conscious about how the niqab looks. Should I, maybe try a different style or something? Not to appear like way too conservative or something, but like looking at a few people online gave me the confidence to just continue with this simple niqab. One specific one that really inspired me was Amina Iqbal. I think you had her on your podcast as well. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, mashallah. Yes, alhamdulillah. So you mentioned earlier that where you live, the niqab is something that's quite cultural. So about 90% of women wear it. So would you say, do you know of any women who've been forced into wearing the niqab, or do you think some are forced to wear the niqab?
Um, I think it's not more about like forcing. It's just like something people do because everybody does, because you don't want to stand out. And also because like in the society here, like you get, stared at really badly. I mean, like Indians are famous for staring. So, um, like out of our own self consciousness or like self respect, people do want to wear the niqab because otherwise you would get really bad looks. Even like when you wear a niqab, like there's nothing that like it's only your eyes that are apparent, but like people still stare at you, and that's really bad. So I wouldn't say like anybody forces you to wear a niqab, although like maybe people would be happy if you wore a niqab. But I don't think there is anybody who was forced to wear a niqab, especially like for after COVID, people like who actually don't want to wear a full niqab, they actually do wear like a mask. So I don't think there's like any forcing behind it. I like as far as I know. Yeah.
Okay, alhamdulillah. And would you say, have you come across any sisters, um, maybe not in your community, but online, for example, who would like to wear the niqab, but they don't feel that the confidence to do so, or maybe they're in a community where the niqab isn't as accepted, so they, kind of shine away from it?
Mm, my message for them would be if you're happy doing it, if you're doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then do it, because at the end of the day, like, what people say doesn't matter. Like, regardless of what you do, people are going to judge anyways. You do anything good, they're going to judge you. If you do anything bad, people are going to judge you. So, make a wise choice for yourself, make a wise choice for your akhirah and why you're doing it. Yes, sometimes it could be very difficult, but again, like, rethink about why you're doing it. So, like, just revisit your why. And when you reflect on that, inshallah, you'll get more strength on continuing to do that.
Inshallah, inshallah. MashaAllah, Jazakallah khair. That's really good advice. So finally, I will ask you, sister, what does the niqab mean to you?
So for me personally, niqab is something that I want to do. I follow the opinion that niqab is not fard, but I still like to wear it because of the confidence it gives me. And um, like, niqab basically is like my comfort zone. It gives you a lot of freedom, and yeah, that's basically what niqab means to me.
Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah khair, sister. Thank you so much for giving your time today. And, I really appreciate it. Inshallah, the sisters listening will be able to benefit, and we'll share the links to your Instagram and even your YouTube channel as well, if you would like, in the description box, so that they can follow you and keep up to date with your, your life coaching and those nutritional advices that, you have to share with people, inshallah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think I have like an announcement I haven't made yet, but I think let's start with your audience. So they will be like the first ones to hear. Inshallah, I'll be publishing a book soon, and it should be published in a few months. It's on Islamic career coaching, or like, it's not coaching, Islamic career guidance, and choosing a career that will build your akhirah. And like I like to say, your work doesn't just have to be a mere source of income. It can be much more meaningful, something that motivates you, something that can be a source of your ibadah, and also your legacy. So yeah, that's just a small announcement I'd like to make. Yeah, thank you.
Alhamdulillah, mashallah, jazakallah khair. That's really interesting, and I'm glad to hear that you're writing a book as well. Alhamdulillah. So I would invite you now to maybe discuss your book further on my author's podcast, but I do have an author's
Oh,
podcast as well. So inshallah, when you have time, then we can arrange to do that also, so that we can go into more details talking about your book. So at a later date, if closer to the time that you've launched the book, or want to publishing it, we can do an interview, inshallah, so that you can have it as part of your kind of promotional something for your for your book, inshallah. That'll be nice. We can
that's
get
very
some
generous of
more
you. Thank you so
details
much.
about it. Inshallah, sister. Barakallahu feekum, and jazakallah khair again, and it's been a pleasure talking to you. Have a blessed day, inshallah.
Wa assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.